presenter today, Dr. Nwafo C. Gideon. Dr. Gideon, who is a distinguished geologist, a geophysicist, and a mineral economist with over 17 years experience in solid mineral exploration and mining. He holds a BSc in geology, an MSc in geophysics, and a PhD in mineral economics. He is a co-founder as well as the chief coordinator of this our distinguished group, and he promotes advancements in mining practices and environmental protection. He is also the CEO and co-founder of Chalion IS Limited and Trekbig Company Limited. He provides expert services in exploration and ore trading, and he shares his expertise through his popular YouTube channel, the one called Mineral Mining. He has over 200 videos on that, and if you go to his Facebook and all his social media handles, he's got contents for people to grow in. So he's quite a renowned expert in the field of mining and has extensive experience working with artisanal communities. So his insights today will be invaluable to us as we navigate this important topic. So Dr. Gideon, I have the honor to yield the floor to you, please. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that kind words and amazing introduction. Madam Dr. Mrs. Salau, I thank you. Also, I've been our mentor for several years now. Words cannot express how we've actually benefited from your mentorship, and your guidance all these years. I wouldn't want us to spend much time because I don't understand what is happening to data network all over this country. Alex, we'll have peaks for some time now. I will just try to, as much as possible, to go through this, and it will be more of practical explanations to what we've actually seen in the field. Just give a few guides on how alluvial gold mining, prospecting actually, and mining actually done. We're trying to lay more emphasis on some of the work mainly done by people who do not have so much money to go into mechanized method of mining. So we all know that most of the time mining gold is something that is done in the nooks and crannies of most of the African countries, and this has not actually something that has been palatable in most cases, especially when it comes to the environment. Gold is very actually highly in demand. You can't take it away that gold is the money. Gold is the real money. When you are talking about money, gold is the money. If you have gold, you have money. In short, I tell people that you better store gold, buy gold than buying phones. Gold is the only thing that you can keep in your house. And whenever you bring it out, even from the ground, in the next 10, 20 years, you make more money. But I've not seen any property that you buy now that will not depreciate. Rather, gold appreciates. I remember my gold ring I bought those days. Today, when I brought it up, I wonder how it had actually appreciated. So gold is the real money. So not the paper you hold in your hand. And alluvial gold, it has contributed so much in a greater percentage to production of gold all over. So that's why we, lay more emphasis on ASM activities. And the ASM activities actually needed to be guided very well. Otherwise, a lot of things will happen. If you remember, there's a post I made yesterday in our platform, and that post was talking about, artisanal excavation in some part of southeastern Nigeria on lead zinc. And that post, when I visited the location, I made that post, and I said that this method of mining is very bad and complained about it. And just a few days ago, I got news that the same pit collapsed, and over 5 or 3 persons died, in that pit. So this is the problems and the challenges that we see. So that's why it's very proper bring whatever we know, expertise, to engage people that are actually involved in this informal sector, provide guides, which is like a structured approach for operators, which also will serve as an approach to professionals and some people that are actually interested in detailing the exploration processes of this alluvial gold. And also, there are certain terms that we need to look at, when it comes to gold mining that is near surface. Most of the time, it's confusing and they are interwoven, and they could be used in relation to one another. The first eight, when we're talking about alluvial deposits, it definitely might not actually necessarily be only gold. It might be, all these kind of minerals that are actually formed through the transportation and deposition of sediment by around the river. We'll talk about also the colluvial deposit. Colluvial deposit, also is deposit that is actually transported and deposited by sediment through gravity process, like something like rock forks and landslides. Also, placer deposit, most of the time used for for heavy minerals that actually concentrated along the stream channels. And this can also be further divided into stream placers, bench placers, terrace placers. So they are all about placer deposit. Then another one is the residual deposit. That this is the kind of deposit you see that where the rock has actually weathered through erosions. You see this alluvial and residual deposits. So when you're able to get in touch of alluvial deposits, most of the time they are actually formed through the weathering and the movement of the same mineral close by or in situ. So we'll call them residual. Other terms possibly we might see will be the tailings. Definitely you can't talk about gold mining without tailings, because tailings is like the waste, the leftover. But most of the time, these tailings are also processed into secondary form also to be able to, get other forms of minerals or other metals, especially when gravity method is used in recovering gold. Most of the time, some of these gravity methods that are actually used by IAMESEP are not well processed. So the tailings becomes another not actually waste, but another material that you could actually process in a secondary form to recover what you are looking for. Then another terms here is the pay gravel or pay streak. These are alluvium or a placer deposit or the gravel that we say that contain the gold itself. So that's what we say that they are the pay streak. Then very importantly, it's the first thing first is the geology of gold. When you're talking about the geology of gold, you actually want to mine gold. At least you have to be very close to the geology. What gives geology is all about what environment, what is actually responsible for this gold mineralization, what is responsible for deposition. You look at the formation itself, where the gold is actually formed, where we are looking for gold. We all know that gold is mainly associated with quartz veins and quartz conglomerates, quartz breccias. And the gold can actually move over time. They are mobilized into from one location to the other. But one thing with gold is that their sources are not very far from the from where they have actually moved from. Also, when we're talking about this gold, this is the kind of gold we see around, channels, terraces, and floodplains. So the major thing here also is the indicators that there is gold. There must be indicator that there is gold. If this indicator is not there, you must know that you need to understand that these golds are not there. Like they are kind of sands that people actually want to pan along the river channels, which may give indication. There's a kind of colors that you need to look at to say, yeah, they're the kind of accessory minerals that you may want to look at, to look at, talk about gold being present in that particular location. But in Nigeria generally, gold is actually restricted, not actually, will I say, about 85% of our gold mineralization or prolific locations for gold are restricted within the western part of the country, which is found in the schist belt of this country. The schist belt runs from the northwest down to the southern part. But if also in the parts northeast, gold is found within Kanu, Kaduna area also. But most of the prolific natures of gold have been seen within the western schist belt of the country, being actually controlled strongly by structures, the northeastern structures, which gives rise to the auxiliary northwest and the north-south structures are what actually controls this mineralization. So this actually showing you the just a brief geology of the country in its entirety. The red line shows where most of the golds are actually. There are some other minor schist belts that you can see in the south, just like the schist belts within the urban massif. They also give rise to gold, but the well-known ones are located within the western part of this country. Then another interesting thing here we need to look at is the problems that is associated with the exploration. There are a lot of lapses that we've seen in the exploration of alluvial gold. Most of the gold that we're talking about are actually near surface. So most of the time is the weaknesses that actually we'll see coming out from the methodology. The methodology has become an issue in terms of the way these things are sampling, identifying the right sample, determining the appropriate sample size, and all that. So it is very important that the sampling are done in a very practical way and in the right way. Once the samplings are not well done, are not well graded, becomes it becomes a problem. So this is one thing we need to know. Another thing we need to look at is the issue of excavation when it comes to pitting. Pitting to actually sample gold has to do methodologically and the calculation has to be done with a particular process. When we go to volume computation, I will tell you how the right way to do some few calculations there. But I think that most of the problems that are occurring in alluvial gold mining is mainly in the prospecting aspect of it. When these lapses occur, most of the time you go in there, you wouldn't get anything. At least there should be an idea of the volume you're expecting, at least per cubic meter. Today, most of the gold can be mined in 1 cubic meter. What 1 gram per cubic meter is very interesting. Even 1 ton per 1 gram per ton is also very good. But most of the time, we lack the right thing to do. And because some of these things are migrating from one location to the other, once your sampling is not well distributed to the area you are interested, you might, at the end of the day, mobilize to the field with your equipment and you find out nothing. But most of the locals that are into sluicing, using boxes, using panning, might not have much to actually use. But if you are mobilizing some few reasonable equipment like the zip plants, that will cost some few naira to mobilize. So it's moderate cost. So in that way, you need to do a systematic and precisely know where to expose, where the gravels are, and other things. Also, another lapses comes in the way we treat the auriferous gravels and the quartz. We need to understand the use of appropriate techniques that actually that are required in actually treating the quartz or some of the gravel that actually contain these materials. So then where do we now find gold? Where do we find gold? The few points we need to know is that generally gold can be found anywhere. That is just, Professor Garba, I could remember when he was doing some work and presenting on gold, he will always tell you that gold is where they are found. That is one thing. And gold actually can be found in many lithologies, because some of the what controls gold is structures. They go linearly based on the fractured and the joints, how a particular rock is actually fractured or jointed. Gold actually is released through weathering because they move, and you should understand that when the acid come in contact with gold in the ground, what happens is that there's a leaching of gold, and there's a migration through water, the groundwater, through streaming. That's why it is also very important if you are looking for vein or primary vein, you carry out a systematic grading within the locations of interest to be able to pinpoint where the weathering had actually occurred and be able to pinpoint where there should be anomalies. Because definitely, if you are looking for gold and you are sampling randomly and you have a very wide split, you might actually miss it, and you might not have a uniform result. Another thing is that gold, definitely the alluvium gold you are looking for is near surface, and you should have a knowledge of how these near surface minerals actually occur. Now, gold also usually, most of the time, associated with copper, forming places near some of the copper deposits and all that. Just like the Italians will say, you find copper, you found gold. So that is another thing. It's one of the strong minerals like arsenic, copper, sulfur. They are very strong minerals that is actually associated with gold. And once you're able to get these three things, copper, sulfur, and arsenic are very high in whatever you're taking, that is fine. Then if you also you're interested in that, and you pan the channels, and the channels contains reasonable quartz gravels, and also some of the black sands. Within the black sands, you might test to see the kind of black metals that you found there. That will also give you a very strong indications that is it. And so when you're talking about finding them along the places, there are certain locations that some of these things will actually found. And when we go further, you will see how they are actually concentrated. If you look at this diagram, it gives you a very clear indication of how these things are found. If you look at this, one is that if you're actually trying to sample a stream, or you actually looking for where there are possible or higher concentration, if you see two hills, and there is definitely, once there's two hills, there's a valley. Two hills, going parallel, and there's a valley in between and water, most of the time is a very good trap for you. A very good trap. I saw this mainly when I visited some locations in Ghana. In short, most of the hills, beneath the hills, or if you get two hills in between, it becomes a very interesting location for placer deposits. And also, you look at residual placer, like what we say, that will occur as a matter of weathering. This is when you have a vein structure, within the vein structure, which definitely they are concealed within the bedrock. You might not see them, but If you've done a very interesting well-graded sampling, you might be able to intercept them. But that's why your sampling must have a particular way of going. The artisanals most of the time might not involve themselves in this systematic sampling, but they might understand that once there is, hills in between, and there's a stream in between these hills, and the river, mainly if the current, there should be a moderate current. Most of times you might not get anything where the current is very high, because definitely it might not withstand um, the good concentration might not be there because of high current. So they actually move to where the current is low, and they actually concentrate there. So this shows you the residual places concentration, the alluvial kind of placer, and possibly the stream placer, Then if you look at this now, you can see within a stream, how do you get these things? Look at this, the other one. You definitely look at, also when you are sampling along the stream, also look at where there are meanders and where there are loops. Is an interesting location to look at. Then where there are something like bars, rocks, within the stream, behind the rocks, they form a very good trap, very, very good trap for that. Then you need to look at the current, how the current flows, very, very important. The movement of current, the stream flow. When the stream is flowing, if you look at the first diagram behind rock bags, you can see the flow direction of stream and see some possible location you can actually get a trap, as a result of rock bars. That is another the kind of thing that can form your decision of where to sample, to understand whether even there is good around there or not. If you just go to river and pick sand and start washing, or you just pick sand, nothing. And there's some water that actually dry up, the old riverbed, definitely, when the water is dried off, if you go there, you'll see definitely that there is concentration. But you need to look at the undulations of the bed, the concentrations where there are behind undulations. You actually look at that location too. Just like when you're talking about syncline and anticline, you need to look at things that actually where you can also see better concentration. Then another thing here is we need to understand the ASM is more of prospecting, and some of the medium mining companies are more of exploration. They are not the same thing. We are more interested in the prospecting of gold, which is like, using some of the techniques that might not necessarily involve high technology, highly advanced or complex to find gold and actually mine. This method is just rudimentary techniques that, involves spanning, using metal detecting and all that. They are low costs, compared to exploration, which uses some specialized kind of tools and machineries, drilling rig, geophysical equipment. This requires high investment and significant technical knowledge and experts. But here, I'm going to dwell a bit more on, prospecting, which is like you use some minimal tools, use minimal methods, and you'll be able to get something. Now, before that, look at this volume computation. Volume computation here is very important. Now, when you are calculating volume computation in terms of estimating the volume of gold-bearing gravel, most of the time, some people make these mistakes by calculating, only the locations where the gold is actually found. Now, if you look at this cross-section of a pit, it shows gold-bearing gravel and the overburden. So when you actually, and you also show some bedrock, if this is actually done like 1 meter by 1 meter, and you want to calculate it, whenever you find gold, you need to calculate the volume of gold over the entire cross-section, so that if you are calculating your cubic per gram, it will be distributed over. It's not just within the gravel-bearing region that you are going to actually put into your calculation. So you need to understand the entire length, the entire area, the density of the gravel, and definitely you just use your volume formula to calculate your resource estimates. But if you use this, only the gravel section, to calculate the volume and distribute it over your gold, you might be having high volume of gold, which is not really true. But if you use, because definitely what makes the money is your overburden you're going to remove to get the gold. So if you don't put in all the entire volume of the cross section you've removed in your calculation, you're going to get the false, you're going to be getting a false result. So another thing here is the guides on the pit data sheets. This can actually help you to impute your data when you've done your pitting. You can use this as a guide to from where to where the section should actually, the weight of gold. If it's in grain, you can count how many grains you're able to get, and distribute it over the entire volume. So this actually helps you to make sure you have the right data sheets. Then prospecting techniques are here. I just looked about, okay, what we're looking at here. One is the visual inspection. These are techniques that are a bit easier and very fast for some artisanal mining, or you want to go into this business. Two is rock observations. Visual inspection and rock observation are very, very important. They are the kind of rock we are actually supposed to see in the location. At least you are looking for gold, you should be looking at, are there quartz conglomerate there? Are you looking at if this quartz, even if you see gravel, these gravel boulders, how big are they? How rounded are they? If they are so rounded, means they've actually moved for a very long time. That means there have been some kind of abrasive forces that have actually acted on them that have actually cut off the edges of the quartz. Also, the gold panning is also an easy method to actually check, fast checking. There is a special pan you can make for this. And also text pitting and trenching, that's what I've said there. But your text pitting must be done in such a manner that you'll be able to say whether you are doing it line by line, or you are doing it along the riverbeds. There must be a system. It must be systematically done in such a way that at the end of the day, you'll be able to correlate from the beginning to the end of what you are doing. Then sluicing is another way. I will see pictures of this. That the ancient way where blocks are actually carved and sloped into a direction, and through gravity, the gold grains can actually be filtered out. Then another one is hand augers. Hand augers is a simple machine that can be used to drill just to down surface and get some samples. Another one is metal detector, which is the modern technology keep, furnishing us with new brands, which I think is very efficient, more efficient. I will use that, and it's very fast. It's just that they don't go down, and they can give you noise if you don't actually understand the basics of using them, on how they actually used. Sediment color changes is very interesting. This is also in terms of alteration zones, in terms of weathering ore, alluvial gold finding. Sediment changing can give you a very good indication. There are some locations that when you go, you see that there are difference between metamorphosed sediment and just soil. They are not the same thing. The colors are actually more different. They are different. Most of the time I look for something that is oxidized, something that is brownish or yellow, or kind of pale yellow colors. They also are interesting colors. Stream sediment sampling is also another good one. Then indicator minerals is also a very good one. If you look at this, you look at, I want to say that most people now go for metal detector. But there's another thing about metal detecting. It requires manpower. It requires some form of physical energy for you to move around. But I think it's worth it when you be able to do this profiling. You know, if you are looking for residual gold, it's fine. If you are looking for nuggets, there's one that you can use for nuggets. There's one that is a wide, a long range, and a short range metal detector. There are a lot of metal detectors in the market, but I've listed here some that are actually very popular. The MyLab GP7000 Garrett, also. These are very popular ones, but they are the long range which can tell you, give you some signals from a very far location. Then you can also use some other ones to narrow down if you're actually looking for nuggets, or you're actually looking for a kind of vein. You know, that is the way you need to, if you're looking for vein, you must do a profiling. You must look for it along a profile, one profile to the other based on your areas of interest. If you are looking for nuggets, you can actually just use the other short one that can actually, maybe within the crevices of rock or within a fracture or within a joint, you can actually use that. But I think this is one of the fastest way the AXM can use if they find a location. You know, so they can tell them, it can give you a location, then from that we can now start sampling, you know, to know. Because this does not have to tell you any quantity, but it gives you a signal about gold. Another thing is the use of laterite. You identify gold bearing laterite, you know, it's it's much easier. The colors are a bit different, you know. You can see a lot of times you see some patchy appearances due to uneven distribution of gold and other minerals in them. And sometimes they can be clayey and sandy in texture, and sometimes they can be compacted. In short, laterite is one of the best lithology signs you can actually see in the field. And also the presence of quartz and other minerals they actually contains in the laterite. The iron oxides are very interesting for you to look at out for, you know. So these are some of the signs you can actually look at. And sometimes the saprolitic laterite and some of the ferruginous laterite. So there is no location you are looking for residual gold or alluvial gold that you will not see iron to be in much abundance. So the higher the iron, the better for you. But if there's no iron, there's no high oxidation in such environment, you need to maybe refine your search to a better location. And also, the gravel treatment and gold recovery definitely is actually something you need to do with different methods, like using your gravity table, which is the shaking table, the jigs, but this is like for a medium gold processing. You know, these are the sluice boxes and spiral machines are the one that actually most of the ASM can use, and they have recovery in different dimensions. The efficiency differs, but this based on how coarse the gold is. You know, some gold can be very fine that you can't talking about jigs, or you cannot talk about shaking table, but you might use some concentrators in order to recover them. If you look at this now, you will see um, look at this laterite. I saw this in the field. The gold that we're actually coming out here is about here. We got up to 1.5 gram, was measured about 1.5 gram per ton. You can see how the laterite looks. And another interesting thing is that within this laterite, you have always some patches of veinlets of quartz trying to move in kind of a particular directions. They are very interesting signs also. All of them had the same thing. Here, what they do here is they take this laterite and they wash it, and they are making, in short, most of them are recovering minimum of 1.5 gram. I will show you some of the machines they use around this region, which is, okay, look at this now. This is losing. They are using here. This, you can see the kind of machine they use here. In this location, this machine is over 200 in numbers, and they've been working here. What they all do here is to recover the gold, concentrate it from these laterites. And you can see the other hand, the Z plant. This is for some people who actually want to do some bigger kind of work. Use some of these Z plants to do that. And also there's the kind of machine here. You'll see that they used to pump. So they use this pump also to some locations. You see this kind of pump can be used from the placer just close. This one is definitely when you are pumping sands from the placer down the floodplains, and they push it inside the sluice box, and they lower it in particular direction that it keeps pumping and it keeps concentrating. But here they lose a lot, because sometimes the slope of the sluice box is not well done. The nature of the gold grains is not actually something that could concentrate because of the force of the water they are using here. Sometimes the more quartz grains are actually trapped within the sluice box or within their carpets. See another crushing and the milling section. This is sometimes definitely this section by ASM is also used for to crush some of the quartz conglomerates or some of the breccias they actually get from there. If your gold is actually very fine and they are trapped within the quartz vein, definitely washing it will not work. But they are going to be liberated when they are actually fine or when they actually mill to a particular sizes that are actually very easy. I got this when I visited somewhere in, I think, Shanunu or Shinono in Kano. And this is an interesting machine they are using here to do the crushing. Okay, look at these operations. This is actually the process route that the AXM usually use. And for me, I think it's a very direct process. And this process also can actually be mechanized in such a way that it can also yield an interesting gold in terms of recovery. Definitely, there's nothing you do without washing, that's why the AXM must look at where they're looking at water, for washing and scrubbing. Another thing is we understand the environmental issues, which we are going to look at later. Then from there, they go into concentrating this gold, and they also use some chemicals like the mercury to amalgamate some of this. And after that, this mercury they turn it into liquid and they burn it. And from there, they got a sponge gold, and they have to burn it, just smelting, and they get their gold off it. So this is the general method they use. And also, the same thing is applicable, closely related to the hard rock operation. Just that the hard rock operation requires that they need to crush it, they grind it, and they have to mill it, and they now have to wash it, and through gravity concentration, they'll be able to get some gold. If you look at this now, you see the flow sheet of what we are saying. Look at it in pictures. This was actually, I got this from Ghana Guides, ASM Guides. You can see the man there crushing manually. And after that, they can mill with some of their small machines, and definitely use sluice. Then after that, they have to squeeze, get amalgam, and they have to pan it, try to mix it and with mercury, and they put it inside clothes, and these clothes are being squeezed out, you know. But some of these methods are not really good. So that's why we try to, even if you cannot, you can't stop them, try to bring about some guides on how some of these things could be done. Then at the end of the day, when after washing it, they forms the amalgam, which is the gold and mercury are still together. But for them to remove all the mercury, they have to burn it. They have to burn it, and at the end of the day, they have the gold in their palm. As you can see, most of the time, after the whole thing, you see a very tiny gram of gold, which is okay for them. And this is actually being they gather it from one sluice box to the other, and before you know what's happening, they are making 5 grams, 10 grams in a day. So that makes their day. Um, Now, the most important thing here is that no matter what we've tried, most of the time, the mercury is something they've seen to be very easy. It's been something that is available, is not much complex, but the issue is there must be at least a guide on that. We think that, there is a safer way some operators can avoid direct contact with mercury by pouring them, they concentrate into a plastic bottles, and with the aid of funnel, they shake it up instead of using their hands to. Most of the time, you see them putting it in the pan, and they try to mix it and mix it and mix it. But this could actually be avoided by, putting it using this method. And at the end of the day, you pour it out, and when it's poured out, the mixtures are actually done together. And in terms of also burning it, instead of burning it in the air and exposing the dangerous gas to the air, this could also be done using a retorting techniques. It actually helps to reduce mercury loss and prevent mercury vapor within the environment. By heating this, as you are heating it, put it inside this pipe and you heat it, you can see the two retort made of few just plumbing tubes, two of them, and the other end will be in will be heated up in a charcoal, and the other end will be actually immersed in water so that the vapor doesn't go off to the environment. So it's another way that could be used to curtail this. But now, the major impact of ASM activities are actually well known, and the issue is that if these things are not well controlled and not being talked about, before in the near future, a lot of things, the issues of collapsing, the issues of exposing chemicals into the natural waters, the land resources, degradation, the air quality, the noise, the vibration, a lot of things happen around these ASM activities. These are the major impacts. The mine waste and materials is also a major impact. And destroying also the natural environment, which is the aesthetics. And because they are done in such a way that they are not formalized, at the end of the day, wherever they've left the footprints is always there. It's almost just left that way. Nobody reclaims it. So this is the major impact. Like you can see here, I was here, you see, this is everywhere is just littered with machines, with muddy nature of silt. Everywhere is siltations happening and all that. There is no retaining ponds in these environments before the water is actually discharged. Everything messes up the entire environment. In short, look at the other picture by the right. You see they've dug and dug and dug to the extent that this can actually cave in at any time, and it's actually left like that. I found this in one of our fieldwork activities. So this is, look at all these pictures also. This one is, you can see the entire water body here. See the excavators there. I think if you go to Osun State, some of the Western states where these Chinese carry out some of placer gold mining, definitely you will see this, going around the entire place. So these are just the major impact. Then this, I think this picture came from somewhere, I think Shiroro. I did this work about so many years ago. You can see the rat hole here. You can see I was one with the tape. I was trying to get the measurement of these pits, how far they've gone. Interestingly, these guys have gone over 40 meters. I think about 50 meters there. I think this tape I have then was about 100-meter tape. I think they got finished halfway. So this is the nature of the work there. And you can see sluicing. They do sluicing directly inside the natural water bodies, and they release the toxins there. So then we're going to talk about how we're going to look at some of these impacts. But before that, definitely we can't say there's no benefits. There is benefit. That's why we keep talking that the most important thing is to look around the impact and how to ameliorate them. Stopping them, one, is not possible. It's not easy, but because we have a root problem. A root problem is why don't we see some of this maybe in Europe and in Canada and all that? The root problem is there is a fundamental issues with the Africa. That is actually why all these sorts of mining is actually seen here. We understood that there is a lot of issues with that. If you stop that, employment issues will arise. There are also poverty issues. And so the benefits, which you cannot shy away from, is that at least the local communities are employed, they have something to do in one way or the other. Poverty is reduced, income generation is definitely there. Overall, if it's formalized and well done, definitely there will be some contribution to GDP and national economy. The major drawbacks in this is a lot. This picture I took it with, you can see the two ladies that are there. They are minors, very young ladies. The drawback here includes there is lack of social amenities. The teenagers get abused. The teenage pregnancies everywhere. They lack formalization. There's a lot of illegal activities most of the time you see in places like this. And because of the nomadic nature of this, there are a lot of migrations everywhere, and health issues that are actually related to this. There is child delinquency, child labor. You see children running, walking inside pits, and there's a substance drug abuse everywhere. There's a promiscuity, there's STDs around most of these locations. And also, the ones you can't see is like everywhere is the issues of crime, different crimes in different levels, and banditry, kidnapping, because of this. So these are some of the major drawbacks we see and need to be dealt with. That's why we say that, from this like issues of social amenities, the AXM sites, the NGO like us and IAMESEP, we are trying to see what we could do. We've tried to do some work on formalization in Osho State last time on this. So there should be a lot of basic infrastructures like clean water, care, schools around some of these things are concentrated. If we need to, understand that at the high level of local mining in a particular location, there should be some initiative to reform and formalize that particular location, not just everyday talk we do. And also there should be some kind of launch awareness and campaign on women's rights and reproductive health. I think most of the time also women in mining Africa are also coming up also in that direction. If Dr. Comfort is here, I also want her to contribute on these aspects. There are a lot of solutions and recommendations, coming from each of these drawbacks. I've actually tried to enumerate here. training miners on issues of safe mining activities and proper handling of hazardous materials, very, very important. Even the issues of the mercury, the chemical usage and all that, and other modern techniques also is very, very important that if they educate them on, because most of the time they run away from the issues of complex methods because they lack training on how these things can actually be done. In overall, the government has so much role to play in terms of security, in all this, whether you mining as artisanal, mining as a mechanized operation, there should be safety. If the security is not there anywhere and these guys are not identified, it poses a security threat to even the community, to the state, to everyone. So I think the issue of security need to be taken. There should be a local security. There should be a kind of enforcement of local security, because most of where the activities actually happen is not where these things where people actually have access to every time. Now, considering this business, in terms of ASM, there must be there's a plan that one requires a comprehensive approach, which I also want to look at here. If we don't look at this and just jump into it, becomes a problem. Understanding the market is very, very important. Targeting, though there is market for this, but not only that, there is gold value chain. That the way the market of gold works. Most people will call you and say they need gold, they want to buy gold. It doesn't work that way. You hardly go out and just see gold and buy. You must understand how to source these materials, and also monitor the pricing and all that, how the pricing go. The legal and regulatory compliances, you need to understand that, how it works. Even if you can't get a full-scale operation license, you need to understand the cooperative licensing. There should be some cooperative licenses, which is also permitted by the law. And also, there should be some steps. And if you want to do that and you want to have some minimum mining pits, there should be some kind of formalization, so that even if there is anything that need to be attracted to your pits or to the location of these activities, there should be a structure to do that. The site selection is very important. Very, very important. Like what we just said before, you need to understand, conduct field work where the gold actually found, and understand, very importantly, if you don't understand the quantity of the gold you want to mine, you're bound to lose money. So you don't do that. So you must understand that these locations have at least the quantity you are talking about before even accessibility. Accessibility is also good, but if you have a good quantity, you can actually create access. But most of the time, accessibility for gold, most of the time you find out that because it's not a bulky material, once they mine just a few grams, you're already good to go. The assessment of environment need to actually be also looked at it and put it in place. Now, if you don't study all these things, it's not in your plan, it might be very difficult for you to attract some grants or attract some some funding, or talk to someone who is also interested in that. Then there should be, right now, there appropriate technologies are actually emerging day by day. You need to look at, there are so many equipment now that can do things faster, even in prospecting, and even in mining, or even in processing in a very, very small scale. Using the right thing will be actually better for you. Then what amount do you have? What is the financial plan? The capital actually that actually required, how much do you think? That's why I said that the quantity of gold you are going to get at the end of the day definitely will tell you all this, what you are going to produce, your capital requirements, the revenue you are looking at, and also the risk that actually involves. Then the labor you might require. What is the labor, the employment, the training programs? These actually need to be involved in your business plan. So very importantly, It's also how you're going to control the work you're going to do in terms of the environment. Most people do not even do a business plan when it comes to small scale mining. The next thing is once you get it, you get into it, but it's supposed to be something that is very, very compulsory. You need to do a very few work in terms of business plan and understand how you can develop your plan. It helps you also to mitigate the risk. Look at your risk that are actually involved in operational, and these are location based, and the risk that are actually associated with your health and all the safety you are looking at. Then also the market and the sales. Once you have your gold, you can sell, but you understand that the market of gold is actually controlled, not just something that you put your price, whatever you want to sell. So these are all the things that need to be considered. Then, in conclusion, I have about 4 points, 8 points here in terms of sustainability and profitability. Alluvial, when you're talking about near surface gold mining, you need to approach it systematically, and it's a good business, but it's something that needs to be done in such a way that you have to recover your money back. Then another thing is the use of some initiatives now can give you faster way of where the goals are, especially deploying. I think the cheapest way now is just to be sampling, repeating, and metal detecting for artisanals. If these are actually used very well, you can get where your goals are. And you might not, in terms of prospecting, you might not really need to, start moving, sampling 1,000s, taking them to fire essay and other. When you wash your gravel, physically, you need to know what you are getting in your gravels, per cubic meter. These are physical sampling and physical methods that might not really require you spending so much dollars trying to, but it must be done in a very systematic way. And also, you need to pay attention to all the legal compliance checks and formalization, which is very, very important. Then also pay attention to community and social impact. Whatever you are going to do is going to the effect is going to have and all that. Then at the end of the day, you look at look at the future outlooks and the growth of what actually of this. ASM actually contributes to the national economy. Most of the time, the problem is that we lack the data to actually study this. Like Nigeria, most of the gold we get here actually being moved out through the neighboring moved out to neighboring countries through some of our porous borders. You'll be surprised the amount of gold that are coming out from Kwara State, from some of these states that are close to the borders. We don't take proper record of it, so it becomes very difficult, for one to say this is actually what is happening. But physically, if you are in the field and get involved in the field, you understand that there is so much coming out from this local work actually being done. And a lot of people have been involved, a lot of youths ranging from 13, 12 years to over and within 30 years are much involved in this. So I think with this, we need to conclude here, and we'll go into some other more of contribution. I couldn't, there's no way I could actually finish everything involved, but through your contribution, possibly we can touch some other aspect that I didn't actually touch here. Some questions through your question and answer section, we'll also be able to do justice to some of this. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope forward to get your contributions and your questions. Thank you.
Splendid. Thank you very much, Doctor. A most insightful and engagement presentation there. because yes, you did justice to the technical, environmental, and social aspects of the topic, especially given the clamor for responsible sourcing and sustainable mining practices, and as well as ESG. Thank you very much once again. You know, I've always cherished experience, particularly first-hand experience. And truthfully, practice makes perfect. And just like Mrs. Salah said earlier on, this knowledge transfer has to be extended to the field for optimum impact. I wanted to schedule the Q&A session before contributions, but I think I will schedule the contributions before the Q&A sessions. But I will schedule the Q&A session before the contribution now, so that we can round up with contributions. So the first question I have here is from a guest of ours, Aisha G. She said, "Good day, and thanks for this interesting and opening lecture. My question is to find out how far is the ownership of the federal government on these mineral resources, or are they all privately owned?"
You say how what? Yeah. What did you say?
Doctor, did you get me?
Yeah, I didn't get you. You said what?
Right. I said there's a question.
Okay.
Which says, "Good day and thanks for this interesting." That the question is to just find out how far is the ownership of the federal government on these mineral resources, or are they all privately owned?
Okay. When it comes to the issue of mineral in Nigeria, the first step is that we understand the regulations. The issues of mineral resources, it's within the exclusive list of the federal government. What it means that the federal government regulates, they own it, and they give it to you to mine. You know, you pay your fees based on the regulations. You get your license. Once you get your license, you follow all the due process. You own a minefield. So it's everything under the air that is mineral resources is actually owned by federal government. That's why you pay them. You pay them royalty, and you pay for license. You know, for you to mine it. If you don't follow the rule, they will take it from you and give it to someone else. No mineral is owned by individuals. You can only, have access to it when you've done the necessary things you need to do. And federal government do not mine. But what they do is that they facilitate exploration. They facilitate in data gathering to some extent, regionally, to some extent, so that investors or people who are actually interested in mining can actually, come in to that.
All right, thank you very much for that. Yes. Another question is from Madam Michelle, which says, "Thank you for this interesting topic, Doctor. With the issue of mercury contamination, what other affordable methods can be used to process gold?"
With the issue of what?
Mercury contamination.
Okay.
So other alternative and affordable methods that can be used to process
you can
gold.
use there are a lot of actually there are a lot of there are some method, but the only thing you need to understand first of all is that the only best way, chemically free method, is using of gravity method. Gravity concentrators. Gravity concentrators can actually concentrate gold for you, but the issue is that the concentrating of some of these are based on the grains of gold. Most of the gold that are actually quartz in nature are easily recovered through gravity method. Then another way is that is the leaching method. You can use leaching, but most of the time, leaching and control of the chemicals involved in leaching is there's a heap leaching that is CIL, carbon in leach, which is complex method and for higher, production. But for small scale guys, there is also some machines, gravity concentrators that can do up to 70%. They are in market. A lot of companies coming up in one way or the other. But apart from chemical, you cannot recover gold. Any other way you can recover gold is either you use chemicals in terms of leaching, or you use gravity, to concentrate gold, and you recover what you can recover. But the fine ones might not actually be also can recover. But why in most of widely used method, leaching can give you up to 95% recovery, unlike what gravity can do. So that's why sometimes the local guys who want to use the mercury, and that is, no matter what you do, they must use it to recover the gold. So as I tell them, if you can't, the only thing is to guide on how it can be minimized, but it cannot be removed totally from the system.
Okay, thank you. And that's where the issue of the retort comes in.
Yes, that's why I talk about retort. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So, Mr. Dennis Ibukolua said, "Good afternoon, sir. I would like an explanation on the volume computing, which you mentioned earlier. You mentioned it's very important. I will appreciate if you can shed more light in this regard. Thank you, sir."
Okay, now what I'm saying in terms of volume, very, very
Explanation of
important.
volume
Okay,
computing.
what I'm saying in terms of volume computing is very simple. Now, for example, let's take that you want to. I wish I had my video. I did this a lot. I did some work last 2 months, I think, on something like this. What you need to do is, for example, let's say you are doing a box of 1 by 1. 1 by 1 is just 1 meter, right? And you go down to something like 10 meters. Let's just say you go down to something like 5 meters. So definitely, you know that your length by your width definitely is 1 times 1. By 5 is what? Length by width by your depth is your volume. Right? Now, within this volume, from your 0 to 5, definitely, you're not going to get all your gravel there or your laterite or the bearing zone, the gold bearing zone are not starting from beginning to the end. Now, the gold bearing zone might be from, definitely from some other kind of zone. But most of the time, people will want to compute their volumes of gold only within the thickness where they've seen the gold occurring, which is wrong. Now, whatever you get in the entire section must be distributed. I mean, whatever you get must be distributed within the entire section. It's not going to be just from 3 to 5. You understand? So because you are calculating gold per cubic meter, what are you getting? Are you getting 1 cubic meter, 1 gram per cubic meter, 0.5 per cubic meter, 0.3 gram per cubic meter? Most of the time, generally, there are some places that is like, no, 0.3 gram per cubic meter, 0.4 gram per cubic meter, But you don't just need to calculate only the zone where the quartz bearing zone, that's what I'm saying. Even if you've actually dug beyond, because if you're dealing with placers, remember, you are digging to get the old beds where the gold were actually concentrated. There should be some overburden. It differs from one location to the other. The thickness of gravel that bears gold is not the same thing everywhere. The thickness of laterite that bears the gold, they are not the same thing everywhere. Some you can even, once you pass the gravel, you go beyond, you are getting into bedrock. But what I'm saying is that if your entire section is 1 by 1 by 5, that is 5 cubic meter. That 5 cubic meter must be the entire zone you are using in calculation based on what you've gotten. So you don't just say it's only from 3 to 5. That is what I mean by that. And I've seen that mistake several times.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc. Another question is, in terms of economic viability of mineral resources, I heard you mention of the quality and quantity of a mineral. Now, which one is more important when considering an economic viability of a mineral deposit? Well, that's between the quality and quantity of a mineral. Which one is more important when considering an economic viability of a mineral deposit?
Okay, two of them are important. You can't deal without the two. But in terms of certain minerals, you don't have issue with quality. In terms of gold, if you get gold, 18 carats will go 2022 or thereabouts. Once you have gold, you have gold. Most of the thing you consider in gold is the quantity, per cubic meter. Is what we call stripping ratio. Every mineral, the most important, the strongest parameters in every mineral to tell you the economic importance or how commercial the mineral is the quality and the quantity. You understand? The quality is very important as much as the quantity. First thing is, if you are prospecting or looking for anything, the first thing you look for is the mineral there? If the mineral is there, first question is, what is the quantity of this mineral? Because if you have much quantity and lower quality, because the mineral is much, it will suffice. In short, let me tell you, I would prefer to have, I would prefer if I have something like, say, let's say I'm dealing with lead zinc, for example, and I have something like 10 million tons. And my lead zinc, maybe the lead is just about 30% institute grade. You understand? Because it's much, you make more. You might go and have a lead zinc that is just about 20,000 tons, and they're 80%, in grade. It's small. So it's all about, juggling the two together and seeing, is the quality so bad that it will affect your market? If it can affect your market, the mineral differ and quality differ. Copper of how many? Copper before, copper of, because of demand in copper now, even 4% is money, 3% is money, 2% is money, depending on how concentrated they are in a particular location. If I see a hill of copper that is even 1%, it can become money because it's a hill. There's a lot. You understand? So if you process more, you can concentrate them to increase the beneficiation, can increase your quality. That is another thing. If they are more, but if they are not more, you cannot concentrate them. How many can you concentrate? So quantity is very important. Quality is very important, but all revolves around the market price of any mineral. So it's not just a mineral differ. So you work based on market price, quality, and quantity. So they are all considered in economics decision.
Thank you very much, sir. Because I know there is a certain limit that an ore grade can always be accepted internationally. And there's enough research going on these days how to extract low-grade ores. So I think we'll go for more quantity. And yes. So Mr. Tayo, you can please ask your question. Tayo, are you there? You have been raising up your hand since.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Dr. Gideon and everybody. Sorry. I will just talk a bit because I think it was the other lady that asked the question I wanted to ask. I will just ask for a little more clarification. I've been trying to lay my hands on some materials in my academic research work. I came across two methods that are less environmentally damaging and with higher recovery rates of gold. I know that Gideon he had talked about it. That's aside the use of retorts. So he talked about I'm trying to. There was this method that is very recent. He was supposed to be able to recover up to 99%. So can you just add a little more to the previous answers that you gave? Because this issue of mercury contamination and the after effects, it's a major problem with ASMs. So that's what I want to ask.
Tayo, I didn't get your question. Is there a contribution or your question you're asking?
No. Question I asked. You had answered. I think it was the or somebody that asked.
Okay. You mean I've answered what you are trying to say?
But I think there are two methods that aside rethots, there are two methods that I've been trying to learn on. There was a paper I came across when I was doing the course of my research work on method, and there's a very recent one. I think you and I even just about it some 1 or 2 years back. Methods that are available for ASMs, not these high tech, high caliber things that could help us to remove some of this evil toga.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. You know, methods like now, like I tell you, generally, any method is either there is chemical or there is no chemical. There are a lot of approaches, you know, based on different research and all that, and different equipment. But, you know, the issue that there must be chemical to recover gold, or there is no chemical to recover gold. Now, if there is chemical to recover gold, how do you handle the chemical in order to avoid environmental issues and health issues? If there is no chemical, you are talking about gravity. How good is this gravity? And this gravity you are talking about, most of these people do not even understand the nature of the gold. The gold occurrences and nature of gold and in everywhere is not the same thing. There is what I'm facing right now, the one we want to work now. The issue now becomes, what is the nature of this gold for us to know what to apply? You know, whether we are going to use only gravity, or we are going to use CILs, carbon in leach method, or we are going to use leaching method, or we are going to use just heap leaching, something like that. So all is all about no chemical, there is chemical. But in artisanal scale mining, any method that they are going to use must not be something that is very complex. You know, it is something that should be very, very environmental friendly and very easy to work on. So there should be, if you have anything there, you know, people are doing different works on every day based on day. So definitely there are maybe some specific, there even one I came across from South Africa, you know, there are some other smaller tools. But generally, you ask yourself, do they have access to some of these things? What they have access to, you know, I don't know if Bume is here. She was even here on the platform. You remember she talked about their own chemical, how they can recover gold. I don't know if she's here. She said she even came on this platform. Yeah, so okay, you are here. So you are hearing what we are saying. So she also made clarification and made some submission on the efficiency of their chemicals. You know, we are all shouting, do we have this kind of thing? Why is mercury going on? You know, so I think, which is also an awareness. The people who actually need to use these things, are they hearing us? Do they have access to it? Like we talked about the mining week, we came there, the mining week is about 900,000 naira, 950,000. How many people came in there? The people who want to, that are actually in the forest mining, do they have access to the mining week? The people who see the mining week, wear coats, wear agbada and all that, you know, are they the right people we are dealing with? Okay, the people that are there, do they also go out to deal with these people? Is there any kind of extension services? What is the ministry doing? What is the ASM doing? What is all the NGOs doing? What is all the women in mining doing? What is all the men in mining doing? You get what I'm saying? So this is the issue. So the most of the issues we have, the problem we have is not just we talk too much, we do so many conferences, but the real thing is that most of the time, the audience that are required, the people that are required to learn or know these things, do not even have access to them. You keep 25 billion naira for small scale mining. How many small scale mining even understand that the money is existing? You know, we can go on and on and on, but
yeah,
we
true.
need to understand.
Thank you, Doctor, of course. Yes. So that's where the issue of the advocacy comes in.
Yes, so that's actually why the NGO, like what we are doing now, nobody's paying us. Nobody's paying me. I'm just a private individual doing my work, and I try to share the knowledge, and we use our platform and all that to get all this. I'm not a civil servant. I'm not involved in government. I'm not involved in anything, you know. So I do the ones I could, and I think I can do. But when it comes to some of these conferences or what the government holds and all that, you know, we'll come in there, do some politics, shout and nod, do all sorts of things, wear suit and all that, and we speak grammar, and we eat, take tea, and that's all. And we are gone.
We don't walk the talk. So you call that one Olubumi? Maybe she wants to clarify something on.
Yeah, for me, it's very interesting. It's very important that you can make some submission to maybe
yes,
based on what I just said.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Gideon, for the great presentation. Yeah, I think I already dropped a comment to the person's question. The chemical is sodium metabisulfite SMBS. But I think one of the shortcomings in the Nigeria artisanal sector is the know-how or the technique know-how gap. So there are, of course, mercury, as a matter of fact, mercury has even been already ruled out of the mining sector. And I think by 2030, it will be completely phased out. But I see that in Nigeria or in West Africa, we're still doing a lot of mercury application in our mining sector. So sodium metabisulfite can actually be used to precipitate gold out, especially for the small scales. Of course, like Mr. Gideon rightly said, on the larger scale, the industrial scale, they have the CIL system going on there where they bleach with cyanide and all of that. But for artisanal that is looking into mercury, SMBS can actually be used. But the technicality, the know-how, how to apply it and how to work with it is what is lacking in Nigeria. And what we've done in my company and what we are currently doing is we're currently working together with the University of Mining and Technology in Ghana. We know Ghana has an institution for mining and technology on a research, and because Ghana is also a very big hub for artisanal mining, just like it is in Nigeria, even more. So we are currently working with them, and one of the research work they are doing for us is to use sodium metabisulfite in this. They've reported that, yes, they use it in some of their artisanal mine field and all of that. But now on a more formal or corporate level now, we want to get them to do those research which they have some of the selected artisanal group using this chemical, and then have a proper report on the impact and the effectiveness, the advantage over what is currently in use. And by the time we get the results, which it was supposed to be, it's a 6 month or thereabout kind of project and is already ongoing, we would be able to introduce it to the Nigerian mining sector. So for those that have the technical know-how, yes, they can use sodium metabisulfite to precipitate gold in place of mercury. But just to ensure that we are getting everyone on board, or as much as that are interested in it, this research is going on board. And as soon as we have that result, I'm going to have that presentation with the approval from the management of this group to do that presentation and reach out to as many as we can reach out to. And like the other last speaker said, advocacy is also very paramount. And I see that is what is lacking in the Nigerian mining system compared to in Ghana, if we can, because it was easier to get a university to work with in Ghana. It was easier to identify the bodies that were really ready to work and make the sector work better or better position and add better value to the economy rather than just taking out of it, But in Nigeria, we still have that issue and all of that. But as soon as we have that research, I'm going to share the result with us here and the application, the know-how. And for as many that we want to run trial with us, we would be open to have that trial with them and have this phase well dealt with. So I hope I've answered the question, but you can do your research on it. It's an hydric reaction. So it's an aquaregia for those that are chemists. You are going to be using some acids, of course, the nitric and the HCl acid, but there won't be mercury in it. And so the aquaregia solution helps, which is combination of 1:3 ratio of nitric acid to HCl, dissolves the gold, the ore, and everything in it. And then you now use sodium metabisulfite to precipitate it out. And when you precipitate, you have some darkening solution of darkening kind of results, which is washed off with water and you get your pure gold. So it's used in jewelry houses where they have a lot of gold dust and all of that. They pack the dust with sands and a lot of impurity. And then you see them dissolving it in this 1:3 ratio aquaregia. And then when you do that, you you dissolve the gold and everything in it, and then you use SMBS. So you need to calculate what volume of sodium metabisulfite is to be dissolved in water, in what directly into it, add it as the powder, what quantity. So all those technicalities, what is lacking in our system, which we are trying to establish with the institution. And once we have that, we can bring it back and introduce it to as many that would be
Fumi,
willing
I
to
know
work
last time
with us.
I remember last time you talked here, I told you that this is really, there should be a strong awareness on this, that we don't even know about it. And your company is on board for it now. And please, I'll appreciate any write-up on this. We can also share it on our platform, and we should also have access to it. The last presentation you did, I think we'll have it, but if you have some document on this, please kindly also share it on the platform so we can distribute it, because I know that some people might be interested and they might want to have access to these documents. Thank you on that.
Right.
Yeah, sure. Once we're done with the research and we have it from UMAT, we would share accordingly. And that's why I was at the mining conference last week, trying to join every other person and connect with as many bodies as possible, just to push out this on the environmental side. Because this is not just about artisanal, even those in leaching. When they leach with cyanide is another mess on its own, and it needs to be detoxified for the tailings management. This particular product also goes to that end. And of course, we are some mining company in Nigeria who are in CIL, are already working with us on that part. Some are already using our products to, correct their tailing, do their tailing management and all of that. But there's still a lot of ground to be covered. Thank you, Mr. Gideon.
Absolutely, thank you very much, Madam Bumi. And yes, this the issue of mercury, like I always keep saying, is because they consider it to be a very fast amalgam, and the fact that it is easily available, not necessarily cheap. Because now, just like you rightly said, the technicalities behind this SMBS, but I believe with more advocacy, we'll be able to get it through. Ghana too has their own share of problems with their galamsey and all that, but then that's for another time. Mr. Patrick Odiegu, can you please contribute?
Thank you very much. Yeah, Doctor. You guys are saving Nigerians and saving humanity. Information is the bedrock of everything. Anybody that doesn't have information won't go very far. So bringing information in a way that people understand it, filtering it and makes sense is something that should be highly commended. This program is maturing. I heard Doctor said something and I said yes. When you are in service, most times you don't even get paid. You don't even get acknowledgement that you deserve. But you continue to plug at it. Eventually, it will help to pay school fees of people that don't even know your name, but posterity will judge you fairly. You said something. In fact, there was a video that that Doctor flied on his, I think, Facebook, on a mining site that was chasing their vein. They were just digging, I think it should be about 25 meters, and they're just following the vein.
Yes.
That's what we are seeing in Nigeria. And I put the blame squarely on our government. And why do I do this? Look, you made it very clear. The minerals that we're exploiting doesn't belong to us. It belongs to federal government. So if mineral belongs to federal government should be able to wise up and come closer to see what the practitioners are doing, because his economic interest is represented. This morning, I read something about Governors Forum saying no to NNPC because NNPC brought a bogus request to recover something they didn't announce. They had a meeting in June. They didn't bring it to the attention of the committee. In November, they brought a bogus bill that they should recover another 1 billion. So the country has been paying subsidy in another nomenclature. We need to be serious. It's serious, really serious. Mining can help this country to have a quantum leap, to start recovering critically from all sides. And we continue to pay lip service. Our financial institutions, they hear no evil and they see no evil. I don't know when they're going to start seeing something, because it's the wealth of a nation. I can't see how a Chinese person can come here, doesn't matter how much money he comes with, but at the end of the year, you see the outflow that leaves this country. And I'm saying, is it that our common sense is no longer useful? I don't know, but I just want, no question, I just want to continue to appreciate the effort everybody is putting in this sector to show people that Nigerians can actually be useful to ourselves, if nothing at all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for your good work.
No, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I know I can always, but okay. Thank you for all you do for the sector, Mr. Patrick Odiego. Yes, Mr. Badari, please, your contribution or question, please.
Thank you very much for giving me this platform to ask a question. And I really commend the effort of Dr. Gideon. He has been wonderful to us. Even me particularly, I've really benefited from you. And my question is talking about the processing of this gold or particularly the placer deposit using the panning and sleezing and the likes. What percentage of recovery are we looking at? Like, what is our expectation from what's to be recovered? Or are there other methods that are capable of recovering more gold concentrates other than this one you have mentioned? Thank you very much. I'm a student. So
okay.
Really
but that's your name, Badagry, right?
yes,
right?
Sir.
Okay. You just said, what are you expected to get, or what are you looking at when you are panning? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, using the panning.
Okay. Now, panning is part of prospecting method. The physical, direct, you don't need to be confused. Nobody is telling you fire SF from this. No, you're not doing no much thing. Nothing is much complex about that. But panning is like having an insight if there is gold here or there is none. You understand?
Okay.
Now, for example,
yes.
Gold X, we'll call it, mosaic. People think you come to the site, you start seeing gold. No, you don't see gold. You don't see, you can come to some places, you see other minerals directly, physically. Is that not? But gold is like spirits. They might be there looking at you, but they won't see them with your eye. You need to do some certain things to be able to see them. And when we are talking about gold, there are grains of tiny particles that they can come in flakes. They can come like nuggets. The nuggets is what you can see, like you see nugget and all that, which is rare. That's why gold is costly. It's one of the rarest something you can ever see.
Yes.
Then when you want to pan and you are panning just like to prospect. Okay, is there gold? Depending on what you are doing, if you are working on placer deposits, depending on some locations, you can easily pan to have an idea. Imagine when you pan, you have about 5 grains or 6 grains or 10 grains. You are going to shout. I've panned in Niger, within the desert. What I saw threw me off balance. It was something else. I never believed it, I've never seen something like that. At the end of the day, just after watching, what I saw was something interesting. In short, those guys they are telling me, Gideon, you are not here for this. Well, we want you to look for primary gold. So panning is just prospecting, recovery. You won't use you pan also as a recovery method. When the artisanals finish, they are going to call, if you look at the process I mentioned there, when they finish concentrating the gold, now they will concentrate the black sand. They won't see the gold. Now, what they need to do again is to pan. When they pan again, they recover the portion of the gold, removing the black heavy sands. They are like the emeralds, the iron, the zircons. All those kind of metals can also occur with gold in a very small concentration. They are also accessories, but they will come in all together. When you finish all the concentration, the heavy metals will go, because the gold is heavy. Gold tends to be at the top the bottom of the entire thing. So panning is used as prospecting or is used as a recovery method, depending on actually what you want to do. But if you want to do a systematic work, definitely there should be some a way of pitting, a way of trenching, a way of collecting your samples in such a way that you can say, here to here I got this, there to there I got that, there to there I got that. So it becomes a system of grading. If you are doing this is a part of more of exploration, not even kind of a prospecting, which can be done by professionals like geologists and other. But artisanals can easily pan. That's how they do their prospecting. They carry their pan from one river to the other. You see them. They pan immediately, they check. It's not there, they move. They don't go to lab. They don't go anywhere. They just check immediately, they go. If it's there, it's there. If it's not there, it's not there. Okay. Yeah, hi, are you there?
Yes, I am.
True.
Yes, beautiful. So yes, the network sees the bit. So I'm taking the last one now. Abdullah Adamu Mohammed is asking, how do you contrast between tonnage versus grade for economic gold mineralization?
How do you do what?
How do you contrast? Maybe he wants like, how do you compare between tonnage versus grade? I think those are the two keywords. Probably what is tonnage, what is grade for economic gold mineralization.
Okay, gold actually. Okay, let me just take it. Gold can be economical from different grades, depending on what method are you using to mine? How big is the company? Mining, what is their capital base? What kind of equipment are they deploying? What is the personnel they are deploying and all that? And the grades of gold differ. Now, if you see 1 gram per ton, people, one of even you mine because you check the price. It's not what it was in the other year. That's actually what's going on now. A gram per ton of gold now is mineable, depending, on the method. The more the day goes, more we have some method that can easily liberate gold. So even in terms of artisanals, you want to do your pitting and washing, you do gram per cubic meter, because then you are looking at volume of sand you are going to wash to get what you want to get. So you talk about, gram per cubic meter. Then in terms of what you are going to crush, you are going to mill, you talk about ton per, Then in terms of testing, you can talk about your ppm or billions per part or millions per, parts. It can be ppm, can be bppm. So
press for two. That's it. It's not a question really. Thank you.
Apart from even updates, it would be good for us to see sample. I'm trying to picture how it looks. Mercury, we all know how the mercury comes in portable way. So if we could even have actual samples, maybe to help us to advocate the use of MBS.
SMBS.
Yes, the
chemical.
Your chemical, that I'm saying, your chemical really needs, you are
yes, even published from that. What I'm saying.
Your chemical really needs to come have a way. This thing we need to actually say this is actually working and what is going on and how it's done. It's very, very important. I like such thing that actually could help in terms of mercury replacement. So I think you have to do more on. A lot of people do not know about this.
Yeah, so talking about
that, I will have 2 minutes or a minute. I hope you are aware.
Yeah,
that is why I've also engaged my company here to say next year we would come as an exhibitor to the mining conference so that people would be able to see us and we would also have some display. going on there. So
Okay.
that's one. And then the chemical is something you may already know. You don't just know. It's also used in biscuit production. It's in powdery form. It's just like a
It
baking
has a
soda.
wide
It's
range
not
of
baking
uses.
soda, but that's just it's in powdery form, similar to baking soda, but it's not baking soda. Yeah. So that's just it's used in
Thank
biscuits.
you
It's
very
used
much.
across several industries.
No problem. We would love if you can share some resources with us on the major.
As soon as we have
thank you so much. I wish to bring, I wish to thank everybody for their active participation today. Mr. Techno, we are out of time, but if you can quickly, okay, right, please.
Yes. Anyway, in addition of the question I asked earlier concerning quantity and quality, which he answered very well, I must say thank you so much, Dr. Gideon. Okay. In addition to that, I want to ask, because I didn't really hear you made mention of the occurrence of this gold by its structures. So my question is this: does structure controls gold mineralization?
Okay, maybe you did not hear me when I started about the geology of gold. You know, the emphasis I'm placing here is actually on a gold near surface. You cannot talk about gold without structures. You understand? You can't talk about gold without structures. The real thing that controls gold, which is a gold, we are talking about vein gold or the primary gold that are occurring cause, definitely you're talking about structures. But these structures give rise to gold, and during the activities of weathering, the alluvial and residual gold are formed. And when the alluvial and residual gold are formed, they are being moved down the creeks or within the floodplains or within the valley by the action of weathering and migration or through water. You understand? Now, but most of the small-scale mining are just restricted within the. Now, if you go to Ghana, you see most of them mining placer deposits, mining gold and all that. Everywhere is just, what are they doing? Their gold is in form of alluvial, colluvial, or alluvial. All those are combined. That's actually what they mine. And some of the gold are just within the volcanic sediments areas, you know. So, and you see it doesn't go below some within 30 meters. Some are washing within the gravel. That one, you know, is that old riverbed. That most of the Ashanti regions, most of their Sankraba regions, all are within, you know, you can see a lot of activities of near gold mining happening there. It's not because of anything. Like I told you, that gold sources are not too far. If you are mining them in the river or in the sand, where they are coming from is not far. So to answer your question, structure is the major thing that gives rise to gold, because gold sources are hydrothermal. You understand? They are hydrothermal. So it's a hydrothermal field. So if you go to the western part of Nigeria, the schist belt is structurally controlled. The northeastern structures is what gives rise to the auxiliary structure. I made mention of it. And I made mention of the north-south structures and the northwest structures.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. He actually said he missed that part.
Yes,
so thank you very much all for participating. We've covered a lot of ground regarding this alluvial gold mining and the role of ASM and the way forward, especially as regards the advocacy. Dr. NC Gideon, I want to extend our profound gratitude for sharing your expertise with us. And I hope, yes, this is just the beginning, because I know this topic now has opened up more insightful avenues. Yes. So thank you very much.
Let me take this opportunity also. Thank you to recognize some of the members here that have been very been contributing to this platform, and I can see some of them I've not seen in a while, and I can see Dr. Gafar here. This is one of the giants we have in this platform. He's here. Thank you. Yeah, you've done a very great job for us today. I appreciate your efforts, and it's good having you to moderate on this today. Lex, you've taken part of, Lex, the burden of me today. Maybe next one I'm going to moderate. You will now be the speaker. That's good. Tayo has been out of the field. Tayo has been a very great man among us here, and Tayo will be contributing. You're welcome. I can see here we are Barrister. Barrister, you are here. You're welcome. Who else have I not seen here? Jayola, you are here. I won't see your face. Okay, you are here. Okay, please. Uhime is here. Uhime did. Dr. Jepu is also here. Jude, interestingly, you are sleeping in a gold field and you didn't make any contribution. That's not good. Dr. Mrs. Salau is very busy and he's there. And Mitchell Oninye, always a very good, one of the greatest supports we have in the women wing. And we thank you, you're here. And there's also another person here who is one of the giants in terms of women wing. And she's there also. I thank you all, Aisha, everybody. You're welcome. Thank you all for honoring our invitation today. And I say, may you have a blessed day ahead of you. So, yeah,
thank you so much. Let's close this. Yeah, okay, beautiful. All right, thank you very much, everybody. We hope to see you next time. And well, is this the last webinar for the year, or we have
yes, that's the last webinar for the year.
Oh, okay, all right.
We are going to reconvene January, last Wednesday, okay. January. But before that time, no, the only thing that will come up is your inauguration. Your own inauguration is what we are looking for now. The inauguration of the state representatives, yes.
Absolutely, sir. No problem. I had that in mind, but I just thought, okay, I will discuss it. We'll discuss it on the other forum.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. And do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.